So in this video, you guys are going to learn about the simple interest equation. First thing I want to tell you is simple interest really isn't used when it comes to how banks generate income or interest, but I believe it's the New York State's way of trying to figure out whether you can apply information to equations and relate it to percents and percent equations. So we're going to learn the equation, but please recognize that while you may be able to figure out how much somebody earns in interest, it's very rare that simple interest is used, this equation is used anywhere to figure out how much somebody earns in interest. So this is the simple interest equation. It's basically a specific type of percent equation. So it incorporates our use of percent expressions, but just expands it to be percent equations. It uses our knowledge of percents to decimals, and it also uses our knowledge of solving equations. So the formula is I equals PRT, which is just a bunch of letters until you give it meaning. So I is the interest, and interest is the amount of money you earn from keeping your money in a bank. So if you put a lump sum, if you put an amount of money into the bank and you leave it there, you're going to generate income. You're going to earn money for keeping your money in a bank. The principal is the amount of money that you initially put into the bank. The rate, the interest rate, is the percentage of the principal that you earn. So by keeping an amount of money in the bank, the more money you keep in the bank, the more interest you're going to earn. The interest rate is the percentage of the principal that you earn. And the time is the amount of time that you put your money in the bank for, and it's in years. So if you do 18 months, your time in the equation would be 1.5 years. Rate, if it's 5.2%, is going to go into the equation as 0.052 because you're going to convert your percent into a decimal. So let's use a real example. Ian invests $800 in an account at 4.3% interest for 2 years. How much interest does he earn? So my letters are P, R, T, and I. I is what we're trying to find. Principal is the $800 I put in the bank originally. Rate is 4.3%, which as a decimal would be 0.043, and time is 2 years. So if interest equals principal times rate times time, my interest is going to equal my $800 times my interest rate as a decimal times the 2 years. Using a calculator, I got 68.8, but it's money, so I have to make it 68.80. So the interest I earn is $68.80. So by having $800 just sitting in a bank, I make $68.80. Kent invests $720 at a rate of 3.5% for 30 months. How much interest does he earn? So I have I, P, R, T. I is the interest I don't know. Principal is the $720 I initially invest. Rate is the 3.5%, which as a decimal is 0.035. And time is 30 months, which equals 2.5 years. If that's confusing, then you're just going to divide 30 by 12. And when you divide 30 by 12, you get 2 6/12 equals 2.5 years. So that means my interest is going to equal 720 times 0.035 times 2.5. Again, I have to get out my calculator, which gives me a nice, pretty $63. So by keeping my $720 in the bank at a 3.5% interest rate for 30 months without putting anything else in or taking anything else out, I would make $63. Michael earns $800 in interest after investing a large sum of money at 4.5% for 5 years. How much money did he earn? I have interest, principal, rate, time. The interest we know is $800. The principal we don't know. The rate is 4.5%, which means that it's 0.045, and the time is 5 years. If I equals PRT, now $800 is my interest. I don't know my principal. I know my rate is 0.045 and my time is 5 years. So now I have to solve an equation. So when I solve this, 800 is going to equal 0.225 P because I multiplied 5 times 0.045. And then I have to isolate my variable by doing the inverse operation, which is dividing by 0.225. And I end up getting P equal to $3,555.56. It's actually 0.5 repeating, but I round because it's money. So that means that Michael invests $3,555.56 in an account at 4.5% for 5 years and generates $800. Grace invests $1,200 in an account at 4% if she earns $144. For how long did she invest the money? So we have interest, principal, rate, and time. Grace invests, so invest is principal. In an account at 4%, 4% is rate. I'm going to make it a decimal. If she earns is interest. And we want to know how long, that's a question mark. So I equals PRT. Interest is 144. Principal is 1,200. Rate is 0.04. Time is I don't know. So 144 equals 48T, and 48 comes from 1,200 times 0.04. Again, I'm going to have to isolate that variable by dividing both sides by 48, and I end up getting 3. So that means that Grace invests for 3 years. We know it's years because all time is going to be annualized or in years. Last question, we've looked at how to find principal, how to find interest, how to find time, and now we're going to look at how to find rate. Julie invests $1,500 for 6 years and earns $495 in interest. What is the interest rate? So we have interest, principal, rate, time. Interest is $495, principal is $1,500, rate is I don't know, and time is 6. So if I have I equals PRT, that means that 495 equals 1,500, R times 6. And if I do some math, 495 equals 9,000 R, and I divide both sides by 9,000. And I get R equals 0.055. Now we have to remember that every time we get a rate, we converted it in from a percent to a decimal. So now when we solve the equation and we get a decimal, we have to remember that we have to convert it back into a percent. So she invests at 5.5% because 0.055 as a percent is 5.5%. So you have to remember that when you get rates in these type of problems, when you're solving for rates, those rates are going to come out as a decimal, and you're going to have to convert those decimals into a percent in order to get the interest rate as a percent.